Good afternoon and welcome Lodi Unified to our LUSD Connection session. This time our topic is safety. So hopefully you will be able to put in some questions that you have, anything related to school safety. I want to introduce our special guest this afternoon. We have Mitch Slater, who is our Director of Maintenance and Operations. He also supervises and oversees everything that has to do with safety policies and procedures for the district. We have Jerry Adams, who is serving as our safety expert. He is a former chief of police for the city of Lodi. And we have Leonard Kahn, our CBO, chief business officer. So welcome, gentlemen. Thank you for being here this afternoon. I'm going to kick this off with Mitch, if that's okay. If you could please share with us briefly, what do we have in the district that we can access in terms of our policies, procedures, manuals? You have some things here to share with us. What can we go to find out what our procedures are?
Thank you, Dr. Washer. We have several manuals, and I just brought a few examples here today. The number one key manual that we have is our Readiness Emergency Management for Schools. In 2010-11, we received a grant that allowed us to do a multitude of things in our classrooms and develop this plan. We also equipped each school site classroom with disaster kits, which includes water and food and sanitary needs. In this plan, there'll be incident action plans that tell you how to handle things from an active shooter to a plane that drops out of the sky. Another plan that we recently developed with Mr. Adams' assistance is our site security manual. And here it talks about a variety of different things you would want to do to ensure security at your school site. And finally, we have a building access manual that talks about the management of master keys and access control devices. Additionally, through the REMS grant that I talked about earlier, each classroom is equipped with this document. It's a flip chart. Basically, it tells you if you have an event, what actions you might want to immediately take. Each administrator is equipped with one of these devices, which is an administrative flip chart. It gives a little bit more, as you can see, it's a little larger and has more room for more detail. Finally, we provided each site with restroom and office passes for the students. This way, if we see a student out and about without one of these on, then they're probably someplace they ought not be. And if they're heading toward the office and it looks like they were permission to go to the restroom, then they're probably not in the right area, somebody can question them. Finally, one more finally, there's Senate Bill 187, it's a comprehensive school safety plan, which we have taken great steps to automate, which is fully enacted this year. And next year we'll have an automated process for certification.
Great. So, if someone at the school site, something happens, there's an emergency, what do they go to? What would be the best tool in terms of what do I do? An alarm's going off, something's happening, what do I do?
I would really suggest they go to an incident action plan in this document, and then following that, go to the security one.
Thank you. If somebody has, looking through this and thinking, I don't understand that, or I think I have a better suggestion, where could somebody go to offer some ideas and suggestions?
So first, let me tell you that the REMS manual is posted at the district website. The security manual and building access manual are posted at the maintenance and operations website. I control all of these manuals and devices and flip charts. If you ever had a question, concern, need, or adjustment, you simply send me an email and I'd be glad to make the change.
And how often do these things get changed?
These are annually, and you'll find dates. I don't know if they can see this from here, but this one has a date of 7/1/17. This one is 3/21/18, relatively new. And the security manual was last updated in 5/26/17, so Jerry and I will spend some time on this and take it back to cabinet to get it updated. But we can update it mid-year. If there's a significant change, we want to change it right away. For instance, our Senate Bill 187 plan, something came out from the superintendent of public instruction that said, thou shalt change these things. We found that we had 90% done, a minor tweaking of the plan, and it has been revised and updated.
Thank you. We'll move to Jerry Adams. You have been helping us with safety walks, you might want to call them, looking at our facilities, watching drills, doing kind of an assessment. What have you found at our school sites?
Since 2013 and beginning mostly in 2014, I started going out to schools and looking at each school individually. And one of the things that Lodi Unified School District has really taken the lead in this area of making sure that school safety is unique to that site. Because as we all know, every site in the district is a little different. Every high school is a little different. Every middle school is a little different. So what I do is I go out and I meet with the principals and administrative staff of that school. I meet with custodians, I meet with campus security, and we look at what's unique about that school. We look at maybe where vulnerabilities might be. We look at where areas are that maybe we can improve security. And then annually I give a report to Director Slater, and then we talk about things like could fences or cameras be improved. And one of the things we've also found is by doing that annually, we are continuing to follow up. It's not just a one-time shot. Because as we all know, security is a layered approach. And one of the things that Lodi Unified has recognized early on is that layered approach is an important thing. As Director Slater said, access control with security badges didn't start until just a few years ago. You're noticing at a lot of schools now buzzer access control on front doors that you never saw years ago. My kids went to Lodi schools, and those weren't in place at the time my kids went here. But of course, sadly we know the world changes, and we are making sure that we do the best we can to adapt to those changes and be flexible when we see threats that emerge.
Are you seeing common themes at some of the school sites that, things that from one site to the next you're seeing, yeah, this is an issue?
Yes. One of the things I noticed early on is that many schools didn't have a real focal point when you first entered. Seeing where the office was or seeing where open gates might be, people could kind of access schools from several different directions. That's becoming a thing of the past. I won't say it's completely solved yet, but it's a lot better than it was. Also, one of the other areas we looked at was keeping classroom doors being locked during the instruction day. And this is another area where I believe Lodi Unified is really taking the lead, because as we all know, when an incident happens on a campus, it can evolve very quickly, and sometimes too quickly. And so by having those classroom doors already locked, what we're finding is, and by some real world examples, one of the last ones was Red Bluff, California, where the guy crashed a truck through the fence of the school. They noted by having their classroom doors locked, it probably saved lives. So I think that's been another area that we're finding out. And as you can see, if you look at the site security manual, there are a lot of different points that have been being touched on over the last few years. And I have to say, Lodi Unified staff is not shy about sharing issues that they have and that they want to have solved. And as Director Slater knows, I'm not shy about coming back and telling him about issues that need to be dealt with. So I think it's a good team effort.
Good. We want that.
Can I say one thing?
Of course.
The changes that you'll notice out there that are physical is a lot by Jerry's lead, is that we have erased the umbrella of trees, so the drip line, and we have lowered bushes. This is so if there's bad guys hanging around the school, they can be visually seen quickly, and we're being a little more aggressive this year in further things.
So things that might have made the school look nice may not be contributing to a safe environment.
Yes, and we hope that, first the bow chart, the changes we made there, we took out the entire row of hedge, which grew like a weed, but it was we found some homeless people helping themselves to our campus there and other places that we removed them. So it's totally visual. If somebody drives in the neighborhood, they can see into the backyard. And we tried to soften it by putting some bark into some low light plants.
Right. So we have all these manuals and procedures. We have some safety walks that identify issues. So then the big question, Mr. Khan, is, so what can we do about it?
Well, we did, following Mr. Adams' advice, I recall at the March board meeting when safety and security were presented, he made the statement, as did police chiefs all over the nation, that we can't be 100%. So what can we be? Well, in terms of the system designed by Mr. Adams, Mr. Slater, and their teams, if you stand back and look at it, it's really a combination of behavior and information. Over the last 3 years, we have spent, I'll go and say, better than $1.5 million every year on security upgrades to all of our sites. Right now, in this current year, we're about $1.25 million, but in all likelihood, we will exceed the $1.5 million by the time we close business on June 30th. But the bulk of these items are all about information and then protecting or hardening the site. So in terms of information, we have a massive amount of cameras, and we're not going to stop there. We have plans to add cameras every single year going out 3 years, and then next year we'll do the same thing for the following 3 years. Cameras inform. They let us see parts of our facilities and sites that we can't have human eyes on. Door access controls the entry and exit of, or the entrance to all of our sites and our buildings. Fencing as well. All these are the bulk of our investments. So what can we do? We can continually to upgrade our behavior as well. Mr. Adams mentioned the locking of doors. Mr. Slater mentioned reviewing the manuals. The information imparted when Mr. Slater and Mr. Adams go out and do our active shooter drills is it's not only practice, it's informative in terms of what a teacher or a staff member can expect as they guide kids through what may be a harmful situation at some point. But we'll continue investing in our safety and security measures and continually upgrade and edit and parse our behavioral patterns. We are, I think, as Mr. Adams said, at the forefront of what can be done in a school district. So I think not only this team of professionals, but also our site staff and leadership, we need to offer a big round of thanks for their participation in all of these programs and trainings.
So some folks listening, hearing things that are important for safety at schools, single point of entry, the buzzers, the cards, those kinds of things, and somebody may be saying, well, our school doesn't have that. Can we expect?
I would say that's coming soon, and it's next year. We have a process in place, and we would expect to be able to move forward with additional. We have some targets right now that rather than moving forward with additional things, is those sites that are missing those access control points. We want to make sure we take care of those.
Looks like we have a couple questions here. One of our viewers is concerned about the front window that has no covering beyond a tint that can be seen through when peering into the window. What's the best option to conceal kids in case of a lockdown?
So first off, we look at those windows and make sure the tint is the right level. We ask that people, if you can see out the window, they can see in, to position yourself in a position where you can't see out the window. And if we can't get the tint right, then we need to put a window covering similar to what's behind me on the windows so they can't be seen.
So if somebody is concerned about that in a classroom, I'm assuming they should talk to their principal?
Right, and the principal will contact them.
Okay, so those are things that can be addressed through the safety plans.
Easily.
Okay, great, thank you for the question. Mr. Khan, can you talk a little bit about Measure U and what that means for school safety?
Measure U is a combination of three main goals, one of which is school safety and security. In the Measure U, program. It's a $281 million bond passed by both North Stockton and the Lodi area, are many millions of dollars to upgrade both our communication systems in schools. A good example of that recently has been the implementation of the Jive system at Lodi Middle School. That was our initial pilot and our first installation. We are moving forward with the second. And
I think you're gonna have to explain what Jive is.
Jive, well, at some point we're gonna roll this out to every site in the district. But Jive is, on the surface, looks like a voice over IP telephone system. But even deeper than that, it is also a bell system and a PA system. But it's not just any bell system or PA system. This is a system that can be run by authorized users either from any telephone on the system or even from a cell phone. So if an event occurred at a site that required an active lockdown, a principal, for instance, who might be out of position and away from a landline or connected phone, can also just log on to their account via their cell phone. As they say, there's an app for that, and they can run any message they want to any area of the school site that they wish to, or to the whole entire school system. So the system incorporates bell systems through speakers in the classroom that also function as a speaker as well, and it also functions through bullhorns on the outside. It's a massive improvement to the old copper wired telephone system with a separate bell and PA system. So that's one of our more recent upgrades. Also, outside of Measure U, we are also purchasing with district funds. We've got the Raptor system now deployed at 6 of our sites on a pilot basis. I believe ABC News 10 in Sacramento did a nice story on it with Mr. Spalding from Lakewood Elementary School. The Raptor system is a national system. It's designed to read identification cards, run those IDs through the Megan's Law or the sexual predator database in all 50 states. We can also manually enter district restricted access notes that will also appear. And then every visitor to the site will have to check in through the Raptor system. It also adds some efficiency to our visitor process, and that there are no handwritten notes or handwritten logs anymore. The ID functions as both identifier. It allows the system to check for any prior Megan's Law type issues or any district entered issues. And then it prints out a badge for the visitor that also contains their picture so that they're easily identified. Aside from the voice over IPs and intercom systems, Measure U also includes fencing for many of our sites and additional parking lot renovations that will also allow the site administrations to control access better than we are able to even at present.
I have something to add on the Raptor system. It's also going to be used as an attendance system. For instance, when we have a child that's tardy, now they're handed a yellow slip of paper, it takes them out to the classroom, and the classroom teacher logs it in somewhere. Well, that'll prevent all that. They'll simply go in, put their ID in, they don't have it.
No more tardy notes.
No more tardy notes. And if they have their student ID number, they put it in. If not, somebody helps them. And if they're a frequent flyer, they'll eventually memorize that number. Then a yellow badge is printed, not a white one. And they enter it off into their classroom. Once the teacher sees the yellow one, can say, you can wear it all day if you'd like to, you probably want to take it off. Because they're logged into the system and can be accounted for later. Very proud of that feature.
Right. So there's these new things, the Jive and the Raptor that we're piloting now. If they are successful and the district decides, yeah, these are great, we want to move forward, does everybody get it all at once? Do we phase in? How would that work?
Well, we'll we'll roll them out. Budget will always be somewhat of a driver in how many we can do at one time, although even more so than the money, the real driver in the rollouts are gonna be how many staff or how quickly the vendors can deploy their staff to actually get all of these things in place. So if we think about this holistically, we're talking about a voice over IP system that functions as an intercom, a bell system, an emergency system. I forgot to mention on the Jive system, there's a panic button that also alerts local first responders as well. We're talking about the Raptor system, which very rapidly and efficiently checks identifications and alerts the school site of any issues. We're talking about single access points at our school districts that are hardened with cameras and speaker boxes and door access systems throughout the district with 50 sites. While we don't have enough money in any single year to accomplish all that, we also couldn't do it logistically. So this will be rolled out year after year. We expect the budget to be available every single year, and we expect our planning to allow us to actually move forward with constantly adding all these measures to every school site, to the extent at some point in the future, all of our school sites in essence function at the same level in terms of security and access.
And Mitch, you had mentioned these kits, the emergency kits that are out at the school sites. What are the plans to make sure that folks know how to use them, what's in them, replenish them for the perishables?
I have a few budding movie stars right now.
Ah.
We're working on a YouTube video that we'll publish that we'll first let you look at and prove it. That demonstrates the kit's use. They'll open the kit and they'll talk about things that are inside of it. And there's been a few challenges, so they figured out the modesty curtain, how to hang that quickly because somebody might need to use the restroom. And the supplies and what to do in the event that you consume some things in there and how to get them replenished.
Right. We have had some debriefing sessions on lockdown drills, emergency procedures that have gone on. Anybody, what have you noticed that we've done well? Maybe things we need to tighten up a bit when there's an emergency or drill.
Touch that with drills. I'm noticing now that they use common language. In the past, somebody might, if there was a drill or an incident, they would say Big Bear is on campus. Now they're using plain English when they announce it. For instance, when they do a drill, they'll say, this is a drill, this is only a drill, this is an active shooter drill, this is a drill, and then provide instructions on what to do in the classroom. So many people are being trained to hear that. If they don't hear this is a drill, they know that it's actual event. And Jerry, I think you've seen some things up there also.
Yeah, when we first started doing this, it was kind of all over the board. There were codes, there were plain English, and really law enforcement for the last several years has been going to plain English over the radio. When I first started, everybody used codes for everything, and now they're finding really in emergency situations, that's not always the best thing to do, because some schools are they have substitute teachers, or they have visitors on campus, or different people. So when you just say what's going on, it makes it a lot easier for everybody. I observed a few of the drills when I first started doing this, and Director Slater does most of those, but one of the things I found is doors were being left open, lights were still on, people were talking in the room, and we're finding as the years have been going on now, schools are getting a lot better at how they respond to drills and that type of thing. We even, as you know, the last couple of years, we started activating the district's emergency operations center during some active shooter scenarios that were done, one in Lodi, one in Stockton. And at that, again, that's about preparedness, and it's about trying to hopefully help staff understand that during an emergency situation, these are the roles that everybody would have, here's where we would go, all that. So hopefully they never have to be used, but if they are used, everybody will be prepared to do them.
want to say that the cameras work for that Bear Creek drill, not instant drill, that we actually followed the acting perpetrator throughout the campus and felt that we could identify the location of that person to law enforcement immediately. So not all of our sites have cameras at that level, but in Bear Creek, in most of our high schools, they are. And we could follow somebody around and tell first responders where to go apply their beat.
The message here is the same as that we're trying to create a consistent application on, say, building access or communication within the sites or the PA bell system. It's the same with behavior. The more consistent we can make it district-wide, the more where each site doesn't have a unique program or process, they're following the same process, we're using the same language, the better the whole hierarchy of the district can communicate during an event. And the better we can communicate, the better we can inform, the better we can decide, and I think the better outcome will also result as well.
I want to report out some more positive activity.
Please.
During our drills, this year we've got to a new level. So I instruct the team, I want to know where the special needs classrooms are, where are the frequent flyers of those that spend a lot of time in the office, and where are your substitute teachers. I would say that 90% of those areas, I would suspect to find error, I didn't. So it tells me that our administration is doing all the appropriate things when they get a new substitute or a new teacher in, that they're giving them the first aid package and saying, hey, if there is a drill, this is what you ought to do. Keep the kids quiet, shut the lights off, lock your door. And then for everybody out there, check your door to make sure it's engaged and let us know so we can fix it if it doesn't engage the first time.
Being the new kid on the block, in my discussions with Mr. Slater and Mr. Adams, one thing I'll note is over the years, and at least in their recounts, initially when these drills first began in the Lodi Unified School District, I think the statement would be a fair quote that the bulk of the doors during these drills remained open. And now the opposite is true. The bulk of the doors are locked and secured, lights are out. So we are starting to create these patterns of response in our drills. But the better we drill, the better we will react if or when.
I can say this, Leonard, in actuality, this last year, I don't believe we found one door unlocked. We found them not engaged. They had, staff had done all the right things to lock the door, they just didn't double check it, make sure it clicked in and locked. And that's a very valuable thing all of you can do out there, even in your own homes, is when you lock your door at night, make sure you hear the click that it's engaged, and this again, just push on the room.
One thing I've heard about drills is that, folks are saying they know what to do when they're in their classroom and the drill happens. What about if it's lunchtime, if it's recess time? Are we doing enough of those kinds of practice drills so that everybody, including the children, know what to do if they're not already in a room?
Well, I can recount a conversation I had with one of our principals who was concerned about that very issue. He stated that he ran a drill, a surprise drill during a passing period. And because of the practice during the active shooter and the lockdown drills, the statement was made that these kids just found their way into locked classrooms. Everybody cleared campus in a very short period of time. Naturally, most of the kids weren't in the classroom that they were supposed to be in when the bell finished ringing, but they were safe and secured in classrooms. So simply practicing and creating this common understanding that in one of these events, the safest place to be is in a locked classroom, as clearly the message has gotten through. And I think while additional practice under those circumstances is probably advisable, the theme is still there, and I think the understanding is starting to become ingrained. And both our staff and our students.
Beyond that, we have equipped, we keep asking, occasionally Jerry will detect some places where we need to add more keys to, that every teacher at the site has a gate key. So if they're caught out on the grass or on the hard surface and they're hear active shooter, we hope never, activity going on, it's probably best to go away from it, and they can get the kids and whoever's around outside the nearest gate. We were adding additional gates at a few sites this year just so they have better access to leave the site. And we have had those courageous conversations with staff that once the door is locked, do you open it? And that's a choice of each classroom administrator, which is now a teacher's administrator. In a lockdown, that classroom is your area. Do you open it and put a risk to the kids? And are you having the courageous conversation with all the children that if you're caught out in the open, where do you do? We recommend going to a restroom, standing on the toilet seat, getting down, getting low, and getting quiet. Or if you can get the heck out of Dodge, do it.
What about the issue of cell phone use during these types of things? That's come up a lot, whether it's adults or children. As soon as there's a lockdown drill or an active shooter drill, and or a situation where there's some activity going on where the alarm is going off and they need to follow those procedures, automatically all the cell phones come out. What does that do to the process?
Well, one of the things that I talk to principals about when I do training with them is what actually happens during a real event. And one of the things that I've done is nationwide study real events. And we know just from the event actually that happened today on a Southwest airline flight that was diverted to Philadelphia because an engine blew in that flight. People were on their cell phones taking video, calling home, all of that. So to some degree, we understand that you're never going to be able to totally control that. But we also understand that cell phones can be a distraction to people that are in the room. We also understand that they can tip someone off to that there are people in a room. So what we try to do is emphasize why it's important not to have the cell phone out and not to be using it. But at the same time, we try to prepare school administrators and staff for the fact that just about every school in the world, kids have cell phones now, and staff has them, and it's not unusual in these kind of events. If you look at any of the events in the last couple of years, that cell phones are going to be used. It's just trying to emphasize the fact that they can be a danger, though, and they can put you in additional risk. So you need to be thinking about that if you've got the cell phone.
Additionally, we have equipped any site that's asked for it with two-way radios for just about every classroom. We haven't quite got there yet. I'm waiting for some more requests. We've been very successful with dispersing many radios out there in the last couple of years regarding incidents, either an active shooter drill or an actual event of a lockdown. We encourage people to have some sort of system out there that those with a laptop in a secure location can send a quick message or even a silent cell phone text message back to their administrator to let them know classroom 10, 20, okay. Because if there's an actual event and first responders are coming in, Jerry and his ex-crew is coming in, they'd like to know where somebody hasn't reported in because it might be where the perpetrator is.
So, tagging on to that, Jerry, when something is happening and first responders get there, what is the first thing they do?
First responders all over the country, and this really happened predominantly after Columbine occurred. The training for law enforcement changed dramatically at that point. Prior to Columbine, the training was that an area was secured, a perimeter was established, and SWAT was called. After Columbine, that all went out the window. And law enforcement agencies, Lodi PD and Stockton PD included, changed their training at that point, and basically now all patrol officers are trained to immediately go in and to assess where the threat is and to stop the threat from occurring, whatever they have to do that. And so we try to tell staff and let staff know that when law enforcement first arrive, their first objective really is not to help injured at that point. Their first objective is to locate any threat that may still be there, and if that threat is still present, to stop it. And so we also tell staff at the same time be careful if you're holding those radios in your hand or you're holding cell phones in your hand. Law enforcement, when they arrive, they're really in a tactical situation, and they're believing they're going to enter into a shoot no shoot situation. So we try to train staff too on what not to do once law enforcement arrives, and also train them on what to do. So and over the last few years, I think they've gotten a lot better understanding of that.
Great, thank
And
you.
I know you saw firsthand at
Yes.
Lodi High how that worked.
That was very hard to watch, even knowing that it wasn't real. It was a very difficult thing to see, and what you said really is difficult if you know that there are injured children in the path of travel of first responders, and they're walking past them because that's not what they're to do first. And seeing that, even though the children were acting, knowing that they were pretending to be someone who was hurt and maybe seriously hurt, not getting that attention right away because the real threat needed to be addressed first. That's a hard thing to kind of grapple with.
It definitely is, and I know when I was a police chief, we started in Lodi the every 15-minute program, and that's the same thing. You do it very graphically. You're showing what can happen. In that case, a drunk driving traffic accident. But in this other case, you're looking at an active shooter situation on campus. And I know the principal of Lodi High at the time was even, he's been around a few years, but he was even, wow, this is pretty dramatic.
Yes.
And not every school gets the opportunity to do that because it's quite an undertaking
Yeah.
to do. But I think it really does show that what can occur and what probably should occur in those situations. Actually, Lodi at the time was one of the first school districts in this area, in our region, that did training on getting the fire department into a hot zone, into a hot shooting zone, which is kind of a new concept for active shooter. And Lodi Fire, I think, did an excellent job of that, and they worked with Lodi PD really well.
So to understand that in the past, fire would stay down the street until law enforcement said this situation is under control, and then they would go in. Now they're going to go in with protection, probably guarded by the SWAT team, to go address those students that would be down.
We do have a question. May we change the law to have 10 lockdown drills and 4 fire drills?
Well, that law is very specific, and that comes from the Department of Education and fire marshals, and it's a difficult law to change right now. Elementary schools are required to do 1 fire drill per month of classes in session, and do it within the first 10 days. As you can see how stringent the law is. Middle schools is once per quarter. However, if your fire marshal like ours wants, you'll do it monthly, and then high schools is twice a year.
Okay, so that answered the second question there. I think about middle and high school semester. K6 is each quarter.
Yes.
Is what, okay. So if there's a group that is interested in a change, it's not our policy and practice that needs to be changed. It's actual law and fire marshal direction. So
True.
the route would be your elected official.
Absolutely.
Okay, that would be the route for that. Good. Don't forget, you can ask questions if you have a question about school safety. I'm going to ask our 3 guests the same question. You can take turns answering it. Given the nature of our society and the heightened awareness of security and safety at schools today, what would you say would be your 1 or 2 main advice, takeaways that you would like to give the audience?
I'll say that just simply that in terms of our security and safety programs, processes, and position in all of our school sites and even at the district office, we can be happy about where we are right now, but we can never be satisfied. Not only do we have much work to do in terms of our continued practice, but also the evolution of this thing is going to change. Like Mr. Adams just mentioned, after careful study of the Columbine situation, the whole plan and strategy for addressing an event like that changed completely. We will be exposed to the same things, But as long as we have a consistent routine of practice and a consistent policy of continually upgrading our sites, then all we really face is the need to implement new recommendations from law enforcement agencies.
I would say that if I was going to make one recommendation, that the recommendation I will make is don't become complacent. It's very easy. I was at a conference after 9/11, and I remember the speaker was William Webster, and he had been the CIA director. And one of the things he said really struck me at the time. That he said, in America, most people feel like we have too much security until the day we don't have enough. And he said, we have to continually be evaluating what we do. And one of the things I have to say about Lodi Unified that I've really noticed over the last couple of years, especially, is where at the very beginning of a lot of these things, there was some pushback and there was some hesitation of, well, do we really need to do this? It seems like an awful lot. And I have to say today, you don't hear that at all. For the most part, you hear questions like we're getting from your audience, which are great questions. And people would say things like, well, that gate was open over there, or that door was open, or maybe we could have a camera over here, which tells me people are thinking about it, they're considering it, and really that's the most positive thing that we can continue to do, because it is very easy to become complacent. It's very easy if something doesn't happen for a while. Certainly when we see things on the news, I think it hits all of us, and we have a tendency for a week or two that it's right on the forefront of our minds. But I think we have to continually be vigilant in those areas because, it's sadly to say the threats are out there and they're not going away. And so we need to continue to be vigilant in those areas.
May I add to that really quickly?
Of course.
I think it's important that we recognize and thank our parents as well. Speaking directly to what Mr. Adams just said about following the safety procedures and the lock gates and the protocols. As we're in the midst of Measure U, I can't tell you the number of sites that I visit during the course of a week. But one thing that I've noted and I've been very impressed with is there have been many times where I've entered a gate because I have an access badge that allows me entrance. At the same moment, a parent, 2 or 3 parents were waiting to get in, and none of those parents ever insisted that they be allowed in. They understood that the protocol is to wait until they have been cleared by somebody who's viewing them from a camera. So that was not bad. Every time I've seen that, which has been often, that's been a very comforting sight. So I'd just like to thank those parents who support their school site safety protocols.
I'd like to add to that, I get many calls from parents and neighbors that'll find a gate open or a gate not attended properly. We take it very seriously and we get right after it. What I'd like to add to this is be aware of your surroundings wherever you are, at home, at the airport, you hear those warnings all the time, at your school sites, and please lock your doors.
Well, thank you very much, Mitch, Jerry, and Leonard. We appreciate your time this afternoon. I just want to thank everyone for watching and listening and encourage you, if you have suggestions, ideas, something just doesn't seem right at your school, please make sure that you contact your supervisor and let them know, and these gentlemen will evaluate that, and if there needs to be a change, make a change, because that's how we get better. So thank you very much and have a good evening.